What is going on, y'all? We are checking out a biography, a book by one of the legendary hip hop artists, somebody I grew up listening to from Houston, one of the legends of the South, Southern hip hop. Either one of the forefathers of Southern hip hop, Scarface Jordan, known as Brad Scarface Jordan, Diary of a Madman. This is his biography. You can check it out on Audible and other platforms such as Spotify as well. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys, and I'm gonna come back with my reaction. Hit that thumbs up button.
Chapter 21. The Diary. I never actually kept a diary. Crazy, right? I put out all of these songs about it, and even an album, but I never actually kept one for myself. The closest that I ever came to keeping one was my rhyme book. I wrote songs about what I saw and what I felt, and just put everything that happened into my music. That's where I wrote my life. Till Death Do Us Part and The World Is Yours both went gold. But as much as I liked The World Is Yours, and as much as I didn't fuck with Till Death Do Us Part, neither one had the same impact as We Can't Be Stopped or Mr. Scarface Is Back. There was room to grow. It was 1994, and I was ready to get to work. All I knew when we started recording the diary was that I wanted to combine the hardness and the roughness of Mr. Scarface's Back with the production that we'd figured out on The World Is Yours. That was it. We never went into an album with a plan. There was never a moment where we sat down and said, this album is going to be this, this, and this, and it's going to fuck motherfuckers' heads up for real. It was never like that with us. We just knew I was cold, N.O. Joe and Mike Dean and my Uncle Eddie were cold, and all of the musicians that we brought in to work with us were bad motherfuckers. I'd get fucked up and record and see what came of it, and then take that and see what we could do with it. I had just bought my first house. I was 23, and it was over in a neighborhood called Woodlands. Real estate was still pretty inexpensive, and I got a 3,500 square foot house for around $200,000.
It's not bad.
This was before Woodlands took off. I ended up selling it a few years later for $400,000, and I hadn't done shit to it but put a studio in it.
Wow.
Considering how much money I was able to make on that deal, I don't know why I didn't just go into real estate back then. The white folks that bought it off of me didn't know shit about making music, so it wasn't like they were buying it for the studio,
Right.
and I still made some good bread.
Hit the thumbs up button. I wonder how much it cost for him to build a studio. Cause that he said he bought it for 200,000, sold 400,000. But I'm pretty sure a studio, let's say back then, maybe could have built a studio maybe for 10, 15, 20,000. So he still made a nice profit.
Once I had the studio up and running, we started doing a lot of
Hit that thumbs up button, guys. Hit the thumbs up button.
pre-production work there. And then we'd move over to digital services to record with John Moran. John's worked with everyone from the Rolling Stones and the Talking Heads to ZZ Top, Willie Nelson, and NXS, you name it. We'd worked with him a lot on the early Rap-A-Lot stuff, and he's a fucking genius when it comes to mixing and mastering. He can get the most incredible sounds out of records, and I knew with him in our corner, the shit we were working on was going to be super tight.
Hit the thumbs up button, guys.
Well, shit. One day early in the process, I was at Digital Services with N.O. Joe just bullshitting. And I don't know if something set me off or I was just drunk or high or both and just fucking around. But whatever it was, I hit a wood wall in that motherfucker and broke my goddamn hand. I think I hit harder than my bones can take because I used to break my hand all of the time. Fucking around, fighting motherfuckers, or just doing stupid shit. And I done it again. I recorded the rest of the album with my hand in a cast, popping painkillers, drinking Miller Lights, and smoking weed. Just sky fucking high. I'm talking really, really, really high. But I tell you what, weed, beer, and painkillers make the best music. And in that case, we fucked around and made a fucking classic. That album was my Dark Side of the Moon. Just like Pink Floyd had already made noise with those creepy-ass albums that came before it. Uma Guma, Relics, Metal, and shit like that. Mr. Scarface is back, the world is yours, and all of the ghetto boy shit had gotten me some respect and attention. But just like Dark Side of the Moon carved its own legacy, almost independent of the group, and is seen as the album that really put Pink Floyd in the rock and roll history books, The Diary changed my life as an artist. Really, I've got to give it up to N.O. Joe. He brought me a new sound, this funky swing with really heavy noisy drums. And then I was able to go in and add my melodies and bass lines, with Mike coming on top of it with all of these chords. And together we were able to create a whole new platform that gave my shit a new, unique sound to build on and expand and contract around. It was Joe's noise, Mike's chords, and my melodies with my Uncle Eddie on the bass that really gave The Diary its feel. And just like Alan Parsons was able to take Pink Floyd and give them a depth and a polish on Dark Side that they'd never had before, Mike, Joe, Eddie, and I were able to take the hothead that I'd been on the earlier projects and distill that down to its core. The Diary was deeper and broader than anything I'd done before, and wiser too. Instead of just popping off on every song, we took the darkness, awareness, and torment of records like Mind Playing Tricks and Diary of a Madman and stretched that across a whole album. It was extremely personal and extremely relatable at the same time, and it was nothing like hip-hop had ever heard before. It also sounded incredible. I'll always remember one of Dr. Dre's engineers telling me that Dre kept a copy of The Diary in the studio as a reference for how sick some shit could sound. It was that good. I remember making the original beat for I Seen a Man Die at my house. Then Mike came in and added the organs and the horns, and Beto took out my drums and added in his, and I rode around for weeks and weeks listening to that beat because I couldn't think of anything to put to it. One night, I took a painkiller, cracked open a 40 of Miller Lite, smoked a joint, and just started writing. I was so fucking high that I was losing my shit. And I remember laying on the floor and making promises to God like, Lord, if you let me come down off of this high, I promise I won't get high like this anymore. When I woke up the next day, I didn't even know what I'd written until I went to the studio to cut the vocals. I smoked a joint and hit the lights so it was dark as shit, and all I could smell was that good-ass weed. And I went in the booth and did my thing. When I came out and played it back, I wasn't sure if I was just high or if what I was thinking was true, but my first thought when I heard the record with my verses on it was, this is some groundbreaking shit. Well, when I listened to it again a couple of days later and it still sounded dope, I knew that when people got a hold of it, it was going to be something special. And it was. I Seen a Man Die was a huge record for me. We released it as the album's second single. Hand of the Dead Body with Ice Cube and Devin the Dude had been the first. But we had to retitle it because Virgin Records was tripping. James had signed a big new distribution deal for Rap-A-Lot with Virgin in August, and The Diary was the first album we were putting out with Virgin behind us. Virgin was a huge pop and rock label at the time. They had Janet Jackson and Smashing Pumpkins and shit like that, and they wanted us to help them gain a position in hip-hop. Of course, I didn't see shit from that deal personally. I just knew I was on the same label as Janet Jackson, so that
Hit the thumbs up button, guys. Thumbs up button.
seemed like a good look. The Diary came out on October 18th, 1994, and Virgin didn't want anything associating us with death going to radio, so Hand of the Dead Body became People Don't Believe, and I Seen a Man Die became Never Seen a Man Cry. Whatever. That shit was crazy to me. But the name changes definitely didn't slow those records down. Hand of the Dead Body came first. I'd met Devin the Dude when he was at Digital Services with the Odd Squad, playing some of the records off of their first album, Fat Enough for Everybody. I thought that shit was dope. It's just so original. While everybody else was talking all of that hardcore gangster shit, Devin and the Odd Squad came through and made an album that was funny as fuck, with dope-ass beats and rhymes right in the pocket. To this day, I still think that first Odd Squad album is one of the best albums Rap-A-Lot ever put out. After the Odd Squad album came out, Devin was just sitting around chilling. So I asked him to come be in the mob, which was a group of guys I'd started putting together. DMG, Shy Ray, 350, Smith D, who was straight raw. I always thought Devin was dope, and he's a great artist. I'm talking big time. He's by far one of the most fun people to work with in the studio. Though he also might be the slowest motherfucker when it comes to making a record. He's worse than me with that shit. He could get started on an album next week, and that thing won't be finished for another 5 years. But one of the things that I've always loved about Devin is that it doesn't matter with him, whether he's dirt poor or filthy rich. He's always the same dude. What a guy. And of course, I'd been a fan of Cube since I was first coming up in the game. Hand of the Dead Body wasn't a runaway hit, but it was an important record to me and for the culture. Hip-hop was always getting caught up in so much bullshit in the courts and in the media, and I'd already been blamed for 2 deaths, one in Kansas and the other in Texas, that I'd had absolutely nothing to do with, just because the guys who pulled the trigger had been listening to my music at some point during the night they decided to take a life. So this song was an opportunity to take aim and fire back at that pattern of casting blame and censoring us. That Virgin made us change the name of the song before we went to radio only drove home the point. Let's be real. These crooked-ass cops beat the shit out of us and shoot us with little to no provocation. But then when we bust back, it's a problem. Like I say on the record,
Right.
David Duke's got a shotgun, so why you get upset 'cause I've got one? I never got it. It's an incredibly one-sided power dynamic, and this song was an attempt to paint the picture of what it's like when you're on the other side of the oppressor's gun. But as important as Hand of the Dead Body was, I Seen a Man Die was special. That record touched everything. It was my first top 40 hit as a solo artist.
That was a dope song.
And as big as Mind Playing Tricks on Me had been, I Seen a Man Die was the record that really broke me in New York. It finally didn't matter where I was from. People all over accepted the record as their own. The success of I Seen a Man Die changed the way rap artists started approaching their songs. Everybody was still talking about how dope of an MC they were, but after that reality hit, and hit big, things changed. It really made everyone think about what kind of thoughts and messages could be worked into a song, and it showed what can be done when you explore emotions that are that raw. It also forced people to understand what can happen when you use your voice as an instrument. I wasn't the first one to do that, of course. Biz Markie has one of the greatest and most versatile voices of all time, and you can't be a successful MC without a unique voice. But I Seen a Man Die really shifted the culture away from motherfuckers leaning so hard on the monotone delivery and into trying to work more of a range into their songs. And then it was also all true. I've seen men die. I've seen people decapitated from auto accidents and cars on the freeway, mashed with bodies hanging out the window. I've seen babies stuffed in pillowcases, tossed out and forgotten, and dudes sitting in their cars all engulfed in flames until there's nothing but ash. I watched the dope wars rip through our neighborhood when I was a kid, and the Colombians brutalize and terrorize their rivals in some of the most horrific ways. And I took a look at that war zone as a young teen, and I hopped right in. It'd be easy for me to blame the depression that I've experienced since I was young on all of the shit that I saw as a kid.
Damn.
But I have to believe that I wouldn't have seen it if it hadn't been meant for me to see. It was those experiences and those visions, plus all of the darkness and the drugs and the depression that I've battled all of my life, that set me up to make I Seen a Man Die. A record that not only did incredible things for my career, it touched motherfuckers' lives. And that's real power. Not my power, but the power of the art and the music that I was put here to participate in, create, and mold. If I had lived a happier life, those lives would have never been touched because that record, that whole album, would have never been made. And that's real shit.
So that is from Diary of a Mad. This is actually a real written book. You can tell it's put together really well. Diary of a Madman, The Ghetto Boys' Life and Death, and the Roots of Southern Hip Hop by Brad Scarface Jordan, legendary hip hop artist. Damn, how was he able to see so much carnage? Houston must be was bad back in the day. I've been to Houston once. Very beautiful place. But I never really lived there long term. So and when I went to Houston, I was just passing through. How was he able to see so much carnage? You know what I'm saying? People, bodies being smashed up, babies being tossed in blankets. I mean, in pillowcases. Like Houston must be was crazy back in the day. For him to witness all that, especially at such a young age, that can mess anybody up, man. But yeah, so what y'all think about this book, man? Leave your comments. Subscribe to Charles and Ned's World. Appreciate it. And go ahead and support the brother Scarface, man. And go download his audiobook. Appreciate it.